I'm here with Tony Anscombe, who is the Chief Security Evangelist at ESET. Thank you for sitting down with me.
Hey, always a pleasure, Amber.
We are going to speak about ransomware, which is a phrase that I'm familiar with. But for people who don't know what ransomware is, what is the easiest definition?
Well, ransomware is historically where somebody would encrypt or lock your system. But today, I think I'd actually term it. Unfortunately, we all know it as ransomware. I'd say it's extortion. It's cyber extortion. And that's probably a better way to think of it because now it's not about a piece of software that's encrypting your data. It's about extortion of money for some reason, for something somebody is doing to you or has done to you.
How common is ransomware? What is the state of ransomware right now in 2025?
Unfortunately, it's more common than you think, and it affects all sizes of businesses, all the way from very small businesses all the way up to big businesses. And we only read about those big ones in the media. So it's a real big issue out there. If somebody thinks they can get access to your network, exfiltrate sensitive data, then potentially you could be held for that extortion demand.
Let's dive into some of the numbers in terms of ransomware and the threats that exist. Is this something that is increasing or decreasing?
Well, so there are different numbers from different sources. So one of the ones that always interests me is Chainalysis. So they're the guys that look at blockchain, things that go across the blockchain, so cryptocurrency movement, and things they can attribute to going to a ransomware group. We've seen over the last 4 years it go from just over $1 billion. It then declined, and some of that was disruption in that marketplace due to the conflict in Ukraine, etc. And then we saw it go back up in 2023 to over that $1 billion mark again. Now in 2024, that's declined to $814 million, according to Chainalysis. And other people will say that we're seeing less attacks. I personally think the number of attacks is probably plateaued. It's probably a straight line because what you see is they will run campaigns. These groups, suddenly in February, you'll see more attacks than you did in January, and that's because they're running a campaign or something has happened in that arena. And last year we saw disruption. There was law enforcement activity at the start of the year against one particular group that got taken out of play for a little while. But of course they reform, they're not going to stop doing that business, and then they come back online. So you see that disruption. So I don't see the 814 million as a decline. I think that's just a regrouping, and I suspect it will come back. Cyber insurance is an interesting topic around there as well. Is cyber insurers will negotiate with ransomware criminals on payment on behalf of their clients. Maybe some of those demands are becoming smaller, so maybe the cyber criminals are learning what the insurer is willing to pay. So asks more for the demand might be more reasonable because they're understanding what the willingness to pay is.
So it's quite sophisticated in terms of the organization of these attacks.
Yeah, this is not somebody in a hoodie in the back of a garage. This is a sophisticated business. What we don't hear about is ransomware groups we hear about the ransomware group at the end, the people that exfiltrate the data and do the negotiation. What we don't hear about is, for example, the access broker. Who was it that got access to your system? Well, that was somebody else, and they probably sold those credentials on to somebody else. That affiliate then probably did the exfiltration of data. Somebody else is then doing the ransomware demand. It's an entire business model behind this. It's a sophisticated business.
Now, we hear about ransomware in the media, but of course, there's not often a lot of details in terms of what took place. There is also a type of company that I was not familiar with before I started researching this interview with you, which is cyber insurance. So cyber insurance is different than just regular old insurance, but what is its impact on cybersecurity?
Well, so what happened was a lot of companies, if as a company, a data breach or an incident, a cyber incident in your company is costly. So as a small business, it might cost you more than you can actually sustain. So it will put you out of business. And even for big companies, if you look at data, some of these cost of a data breach is anywhere between $4 and $10 million, depending on geographically where you are. So if you look at those costs, companies are now ensuring to make sure they've got the right resources and also they've got the right financial backing to mitigate against losing that amount of money. But of course, it's a bit more than that, because the insurers then turn and want to know that, actually, have you got this in place? How are you securing your systems? So the insurers are actually increasing cybersecurity posture for many of those companies as well by demanding certain security policies, practices, and technologies are put into place as well. So it's kind of twofold.
Generally speaking, do you think that businesses are more prepared for some of these threats?
I think they're becoming more prepared. I think cyber insurance has actually increased the visibility at the board, I would say at a boardroom level, because if the company wants to take the risk or have some of that risk underwritten by an insurer, the insurer is putting down those requirements. So I think companies are becoming more attuned to being secure because there's a demand. It's rather than just like the cybersecurity guy down the hallway saying, hey, I need more budget. I need to do this. Suddenly you've got this group of people outside saying, actually, you need to do this to reduce your risk.
As businesses get more prepared, we've sort of seen this happen in the past. The cyber criminals also get more sophisticated. So what are some of these cyber criminals doing right now that is sort of demonstrating that, hey, we still have to stay on our toes?
Well, they certainly do. And the attack continually evolves. Now you'll see cyber criminals not use malware at all. So they'll exploit some vulnerability or exploit a credential, get into a network. They'll exfiltrate the data, hold on to the data, and then contact the company in turn and say, hey, you need to pay me so I don't publish this data onto the dark web. So their attack systems are evolving. They have historically attacked systems through social engineering. Now they may well use more vulnerabilities and exploit vulnerabilities, which are being traded on the internet as well. So this is a continually evolving ecosystem, both from companies' standpoint, cybersecurity standpoint, and unfortunately cybercrime.
So I think people are familiar with the phrase phishing or the term phishing, but social engineering is something that is a little bit newer in some senses. When we see social engineering, what does that look like to the average person or employee?
Hey, Amber, I'm from your IT department. We notice you haven't patched your machine. I need to patch it for you. And there's the social engineering of, somebody's contacting you within the company. They're socially engineering your part, getting you to log on to something, giving remote access or whatever it might be, getting the credential out of you. But social engineering is broader than that too. There's business email compromise scams where you'll hear of, there's an urgent payment we need to make. And a cyber criminal is pretending to be somebody in the company that needs the urgent payment to be made. And the finance team, I think I am actually talking to Amber and she's asking for the payment to be made. We'll make it. So the social engineering takes many different forms. It's basically abuse of human behavior, if that makes, or human trust. Because inherently we trust each other, don't we? If somebody phoned me and they sounded like you, would I trust that it's you? I'd probably say no. I'd probably phone you back. So maybe I'm not the best example, but most people would trust, where somebody could be using deepfake audio or some sort of deepfake technology to actually imitate you.
I was going to ask not just about deepfakes, but AI in general. How does AI change ransomware in terms of some of these threats that do exist? And also maybe both the threats, but also the defense to those threats?
That's a much longer topic. But in general, cyber attackers are using AI to assist them. So we're not being attacked by AI. We're being attacked with tools that have been, there's an assistance in there. So for example, if I was to send you an email trying to get you to log on, click a link, etc., that email is now really challenging. You must notice that phishing emails that land in your inbox are beautifully crafted now. They're grammatically correct. The language is great. And that's because AI tools are putting that language together and creating the content for the cyber criminal. So it's harder to spot them. At the same time, cybersecurity companies are using AI to interrogate massive amounts of data and look for the anomalies and the weird, something out of place happening in a system to spot the incursion or the exploitation of something by a cyber criminal. Because it's not necessarily about a piece of malicious software landing on a device anymore.
At this moment in time, how can businesses protect themselves from any of these ransomware threats?
So businesses need to evolve their cybersecurity. Firstly, it's a wide program. There's lots of things you should be doing, but you need to modernize cybersecurity systems. You need to be using something called EDR, endpoint detection and response systems. If you don't have the ability to run it, you should be using a managed service to do that. And what that does is actually look at everything that goes on, the processes, the traffic, and it looks at every part of what happens on an endpoint to make sure there's nothing unusual happening, which is where the cyber criminals will work their way in. And then once they're in, of course, then they move laterally from one system to another and to find the assets of the company. So modernize, but also training. Yeah, make sure that you have strong awareness in your employees, because so many attacks, so many cyber attacks, unfortunately start with an employee, I'd say, making a mistake. I would say less, it's more an error of judgment. They're duped by somebody and it could feel real at the moment they unfortunately are duped. So make sure that you do really good cybersecurity awareness training and do it frequently. Insurers will state a company should do it once a year. Personally, I think you should refresh that about every 3-4 months. Just keep it front of mind for every employee.
Great advice. And for people who want to get more information about some of these threats that do exist, where can they go to follow along with what ESET is researching and talking about?
Well, for our research and some white papers and things like that, go to welivesecurity.com. If you want to learn more about some of the technologies of protection against ransomware, look at ESET.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.